wanted to talk about was the rehearsal. Last go around, we talked about various procedures of acting, and we all know there's all kinds of formal procedures and not so formal, but very personal and very subjective procedures to acting. The rehearsal is somewhat different because, again, theater is an ensemble effort. We all know that. Even in a one-person show, there is no such thing as a one-person show, because there is a support system surrounding that one person that may be on the stage seemingly alone, but there's a whole cadre of artists that are supporting that person. The ensemble of it all is shaped by the play. Everything is shaped by the needs of the play. Every rehearsal is shaped by the needs of the play. From the first moment of reading the play and starting, if one is a director or producer, the first moment of reading the play, one starts to think of how to build it, how to make it come alive, what to do. And that usually starts with a series of interviews and hirings of that support staff that the other artist, from costume, set, sound, if there are multimedia aspects to it, that person, stage manager, and of course, finally, the actors. Now, assuming that all things are in place, then it's a perfect world. We've got a wonderful script, we've got a capable director, we've got a capable team, creative team, those people I mentioned. One goes and casts the play and casts accordingly to what the needs of the play are and the skills of the actors. Well, it should be said that the assumption is that there is a total commitment from everyone to enter into the world of the play. Now, that's in a perfect world. We know, that so often, especially in black box theater, which is part of the theater community here in Los Angeles, and most theater communities have a small black box or a kind of setup that is lacking some of the resources that are needed, that are absolutely needed to make a project work. But we find a way, necessity being mother of invention. And during the process, we fix it. We do whatever we can. And where that energy comes from is from the commitment of everyone. If everyone is committed to the play, they sign on and they know it's going to take approximately 3 months of their life to enter into a whole nother world and make that world come alive, things can work. If that commitment is fully there. If it is not, there's going to be some problems. They can be dealt with, they can be fixed. Some of them, yes, some of them, not so much. And what ends up happening is that either you'll come away with a project that is just what's called theater magic, or a project that falls short. And we have regrets. But now, assuming that everyone is committed, we've got a great play, we've got a wonderful ensemble of creative people, and we enter into the rehearsal process. And as you all know, preparation is everything. Preparation is all important, because it gets us all ready to do this thing. Everything from that first sit-down read-through to the table discussion about the play, if it's a new play or if it's a reinterpretation of a, call it a classic, whatever it might be. You know, it just reminds me of, again, each play has a specific need. And here's an example. A few years ago, we were doing a trilogy of plays about the Haitian Revolution. Part 1, 2, and 3. Part 1 was about Toussaint Louverture. Part 2 was about Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Part 3 was Henri Christophe. These three guys were the triumvirate who had been slaves, except for Christophe, who had been slaves and emerged as the leaders of the Haitian slave revolt, the only successful slave revolt, black or white, in the world that ended up in a republic that still stands today. Haiti's in bad shape today, but that's a whole nother story. What we found when we did part 1, written by Levy Lee Simon, what we found this play took place 1793. Part 1 started in 1793 on the island of Haiti. There were 30 members in the cast. Remember now, we're in a 99-seat house. The cast is 30 actors. So it's 1/3 of the capacity of the house. No problem, not a problem. One of the reasons was because of the commitment of everyone. The actors knew once they read the play and started to understand what was going on with the play, that this was the kind of work that most actors of color became actors to do. It was that kind of play. It was a piece of history, but also a wonderful theatrical event to tell the story about the Haitian Revolution and each one of these heroic figures who led the Haitian Revolution. Here was the first problem. Yeah, call it a problem. Most of the actors, all of the actors who were working in the play were obviously contemporary people. We had to go back 200 years to find the posture, psychological posture, physical posture of the characters. Most of the actors had 20th century, 21st century swagger to their whole being. They were Black people who were not taking a whole lot of anything from anybody. But the characters in the play were different. These were people who had been enslaved, who had been taken from Africa, brought over. Some of them were first generation, some of them were second, third, and fourth generation slaves on the island of Haiti. So much of what that swagger that the actors brought with them had to be diffused, had to be discarded, because it did not work in the period. It did not work in the world of the play. And this was one of the first things that had to go, because otherwise it wasn't true. It wasn't true to the reality of the play. Now, it worked. It was a lot of work. It was more work for some actors than other actors, depending on how one was trained, what their gifts were, what their talents were, and how they saw the world. We all had to get on the same page to see that world of Haiti in 1793 through to the third installation of the trilogy through to 1820. It took us 4 years. 4 years to mount those 3 plays. Part 1, part 2, part 3. Each year we had to go and find the money to do it, is the reason why that all happened that way. So it was something, again, about commitment and about the play and about how one commits to the play. Those actors of color recognized, even though many of them were not as experienced as others, not as developed as others, everyone recognized the value of the story that we wanted to tell, the story that Levy Lee had written, taken from history and theatricalized. So the commitment was there, which is what drove the play, drove the work, drove the rehearsals, because it was grueling work. Monday through Friday, from 7 o'clock to 10 p.m. rehearsals. Saturday, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday and Sunday. 7 days a week we were rehearsing. Not everyone was called 7 days a week, of course, but many were. Many were principals and were just about in all the scenes. And of course, when we got to run-throughs and tech and all the rest of it, everyone had to be there. Everyone had to be there. So again, about commitment and about when one signs on to a piece of work, you need to know what you're getting into. You need to know what you're signing on to. Often actors tell me, too often, that, oh, I'm in a play. What's the play? I just went and auditioned for it. They gave me sides, and I auditioned, and I was cast. Well, have you read the play? No, they're sending me the script. You've been cast in the play, but you haven't read the play? Probably not a good idea. All right. Now, I know better than anyone that it is very difficult to find work. It is very difficult to be cast in something. And we're all looking for work in the normal world, not now, but in the normal world, we're all looking for work, and we want to be part of a project. We want to be actors. We want to be in a rehearsal process. We want to be in a project. But still, there is a protocol to know what you're getting into before you commit, so that you can commit fully with both hands, both feet, jumping in, ready to go, knowing what the play is and knowing what the commitment to the process is. Often, too often, here in Los Angeles and in other theatrical communities, we've got a full-length play, a 2-act play, a 3-act play that is going, after all is said and done, is going to run for a couple of hours. And we've got a 3-week rehearsal process, a 4-week rehearsal process. Something's going to get lost in that short shuffle. Got to be careful. Got to be careful. It's almost a norm in many theater communities. It shouldn't be, but it is almost a norm, because so many actors, especially here in Los Angeles, where, let's face it, no one comes to build a career in theater to Los Angeles. People come to Los Angeles to build careers in film and television. They may have come from theater, they may have been weaned in theater, they may have trained in theater, they may have a true passion for live performance, but they don't come to Los Angeles to do that. They come to build careers in television and film, and hopefully chisel out that career to make a living, to make a living, to be able to support a family if one has one, or support oneself. So this is difficult. This is difficult. one finds out very quickly here in Los Angeles that there's a lot of downtime. In between those rehearsals, and once you found representation and you are starting to go out on calls for those different mediums, television and films, you find out that even when you book the job, you got 2 or 3 days here on a sitcom or an episodic, or if you get a film and you get lucky enough to be in a film and you find that you're working for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or more, then you find out, yes, you've made some money and now you're back where you started for the most part. You're looking for another job. I've known actors who, I'm sure we all know stories. Actors who have, for whatever reason, got the great job. They got the film, and for whatever reason, they were working for 3 months. They were on hold half the time, but they were getting paid, and they were working for 3 months. And then they found out that they didn't work for another year. It happens. It's the nature of this beast. Feast and famine. All right. So when you find that out, if you have a notion for theater, you find a theater. You build a relationship with the theater, or you found a theater company, or you joined a membership theater company, or you get with 4 of the people on this grid here, and somebody has $500, you got 3, I got 7. Let's put on a play. Let's find a venue. Let's find a director, and let's rehearse, and we'll be practicing craft, and we'll mount the play, and we'll do that. And why? Most people have one eye on those auditions and 1 foot in the rehearsal hall, because again, they came to do that. So it's a very uneven playing field often, because actors are split. And that commitment, however strong it is, real life, the need to make a buck and pay your bills, the need to take care of whatever business you've got to take care of, rears its head and upsets the cart. So you have to build your life, design your life to be able to navigate those worlds, to be able to navigate through that and still remain an artist. Do your work. The rehearsal process, be there, that commitment. If you're going to commit and there's a 4-week rehearsal process and you're a principal and you're there every night, you need to be there every night because you're in every scene. You've got to be there every night to be in every scene. Otherwise, there's an issue. The other actors can't anyway. Okay. Those are pitfalls, and those are real, and they should be mentioned. They should be thought about so that when you make that commitment, you know what you're getting into. Now, all right, so things are going well, let's say. Things are going well. You have a competent director. You have producer that is providing an environment that works for the actors to be able to go through their creative process, to go through steps 1 through to the end of the rehearsal process. You know, I mean, there are basic rehearsals, right? Table read, you've got, I don't like the word all that much. It doesn't appeal to me, but blocking rehearsals, all right? Everybody knows what that means. And you've got your work-throughs where you actually go through the process of discovery, scene by scene, moment by moment, rehearsal by rehearsal, going through the process of discovery, discovering what your character wants in the rehearsal, in the play, and what you want moment to moment from the other characters in the play, and how you contribute to the story of the play. I don't think we need to dwell too much on technical aspects of the rehearsal. We all know what that means. That is layering in elements that the actors may take part in, but mostly it's just that. It's a technical rehearsal. It's about the lighting design, costume design, sound design, and any multimedia aspects that are fitted in. And those rehearsals usually are not all that beneficial to the actors because they're stop and go. But a wise actor finds a way to make those rehearsals work for them too. They find a way to use those rehearsals so that it is not time wasted or idled away. Those 2 to 3 days worth of 6 to 8 hours worth of technical rehearsal, and sometimes more. What's a task of the rehearsal? The definition of a scene, the definition of a play. The cast, the players, start in an emotional place. Something happens, something happens, something happens, something happens. And at the end, they are changed from where they started. They started here, and through that journey of happenings, they end up here, and they are changed. That is the journey of the play. That is the story of the play. That's what an audience comes to witness and see how that works. And somebody figured it out. I think there are only 36 dramatic situations. Boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy and girl live happily ever after. Boy meets girl, girl doesn't like boy, he likes her and is crazy about the girl, and he goes after the girl and doesn't get the girl. Vice versa. Very simple situations, very noted storylines. It's how they get from point A to point B that allows an audience to become interested in the whole journey. So the rehearsal process is how you map all of that out. You find out who you are. You find out what you want, which is paramount. We all want something. Everybody came tonight because they wanted to hear about this rehearsal thing. And hopefully this guy can have something of worth that they are finding of value to their process. That's what they want. That's what each one of you want, to find out some nuance, some answer that will help you in your work. And so you're listening intently. I think, I like to think that I have your undivided attention, and that I have something to contribute. How that changes you, again, the beginning of the scene, you start here, it goes through that arc, and you land here. At the end of the evening, hopefully, it has changed you, and you have found something of use. The same in the character journey in the rehearsal process. You start out reading the play and knowing what you say as the character, and the relationships with each and every other character. Not only the relationships, but what they say about your character, because that will give you some insights on who you are. What other people say. It isn't always true because it's from different points of view, of course, but there is some value in knowing about that and taking it into consideration. Specificity is everything. some of you, I know there's some familiar faces there that have studied in the advanced scene workshop in the past and know that that is an operative word with me. Specificity is incredibly important. General choices are just that general, and they're mediocre. And believe me, no one, no audience, no actor wants mediocrity. It does not serve you. So when you're looking and discovering who you are and who you're playing with and who they are and what the relationship between you and them are, specificity is everything. The play doesn't really start when the play and the curtain goes up. There was a director I work with, and he asked forcefully, that every actor look at the character they were doing and write a complete autobiography of the character. From day one, from the first day they could remember anything, which meant sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, to write a complete detailed biography so that they had a frame of reference. Tedious work. Luckily, we had a 6 to 7 week rehearsal process to be able to do that with Charles Dickens's Great Expectations, which was the play that, but it forced one to be very specific. And it gave you a real foundation of who you were, and even perhaps the relationships again with the other characters. The play begins with a life. It doesn't begin on the page. It begins with the beginning of the life of the character. And you need to know what happened that got you to this point, circumstances, given circumstances. And if they aren't given, the first tool, the most important tool of any actor, is their imagination. You make it up. You fill in the blanks. The what if theory. What if I was born in Naples, France, and spoke French for the first 15 years of my life, and then moved to Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, and I'm Black in 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama, and I speak little English, but I'm Black. What if that happened? What do I do? How do I navigate that? Of course, the play will tell you some things, but you still need to figure out detail by detail so that you know who you are and what kind of journey you've been on, how you handled it, how you learned how to speak English, how you learned how to read the signs that said, no coloreds, drink from this, no coloreds are allowed here. Did you get a beating because you walked into the wrong place and you couldn't even converse with anybody because you were speaking French and they're speaking English? And before they realized that you were, quote, a foreigner, they had imposed violence on you? Blah, 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 blah. You know, in the rehearsal process, we're always discovering, we're always trying things. And there comes a time, yes, in the process, let's say arbitrarily, it's a 6-week rehearsal process. In that 4th week, the early part of that 4th week, after much trial and error, after much discovery, after much specific thinking, after conversations with the director, after reading the play numerous times, you find out that, okay, I've made a bunch of choices. I cannot do everything. You start to make definitive choices on who you are and how you behave psychologically, and how you behave physically. And you make concrete choices. Now, that's based on a whole discovery process. That's not arbitrary. There's a lot of work that is based on, that otherwise you're going to have holes. You're going to have holes anyway, because what we're trying to do is create a complete, total life of a human being with a guidepost of the play in about 6 or 7 weeks. Konstantin Stanislavski, Chekhov, those Russians again, right? Back in the day, Moscow Art Theater, 1890s, early 19th century, before television, before phones, before all of the multimedia aspects that can be so distracting to us as we try to navigate what we're talking about. Back then, Moscow Art Theater, the actors were cast in plays sometimes as long as 2 years before they went into rehearsal. 2 years before they stepped on into a rehearsal hall and said a word. They were cast in Three Sisters, they were cast in Uncle Vanya, they were cast in whatever. It gave them time to do so much of the kind of work that we at times are forced to do in a matter of weeks. If it's a new play, which usually takes longer because it is a complete new play and there is no frame of performance reference before it. If it is a classic, if it is one of August's plays, or if it's one of Tennessee Williams's plays or Lorraine's plays, we all have a frame of reference because we've probably seen those plays or read those plays before. But if it's a new play and somebody hands it to you and you are cast in it as of an audition yesterday, and you're reading the play for the first time, and rehearsals start next week, and we've got only 5 weeks of rehearsals, a lot of work needs to be done. A lot of work needs to be done. And there's never enough time. What was that old saying? Somebody said, Jesus, we did 5 weeks worth of performances, 5 performances a week. That's 25 performances. And we're closing. We have 4 performances left. We close on Sunday. And I still don't know what the hell that scene's about. I'm saying the words, but I really don't know what my inner monologue is, because I don't completely understand the scene. I need more time. I need more time to know what I'm thinking, because I'm looking at her, or I'm looking at him, or I'm looking at them, and there's a multitude of thoughts going through my mind, just like in real life. I'm being bombarded by emotional things that I have to decipher. And they're coming at me like a hail of bullets. Or they're coming at me and causing me such joy, I don't know how to handle, or it's usually a mixture of all of that, and how to navigate through that. A lot of work. It's not easy, this work. Nobody said it would be. Nobody said it made you any promises either. Don't expect anything except to wake up in the middle of the night and say, what the fuck was that line? I can't remember the line. I had it in the rehearsal. I had it in the mirror. I had it when I was sitting on the toilet and reading and memorizing the words. I had it. And I'm waking up now and I don't know what the line is. And I'm freaking out. Hard work, sleepless nights, big rewards, big rewards, big fulfillment, large satisfaction. Because when you do that, especially in the live audience, and the audience goes, or and past the fourth wall on the other side of your brain, the small actor that's left that isn't the character hears that, and you know you've gotten through to someone or most in that audience. And that's what you're trying to do. That's what you want. That's why we do this, is to affect them, to move them, to make them feel something. It's not always everybody's going to feel the same thing, even though it's the same moment, they're witnessing the same thing at the same time under the same circumstances. Their whole frame of reference is different. Somebody's 20, somebody's 80. Somebody's a man, somebody's a woman. Somebody had a bad day and nothing can get through to them because they're pissed off and their wife or husband, or they made them come and 99 people, 99 different tonalities of how they receive what you're presenting to them. But mostly, 5, 10 minutes into the play, if you're doing your work, they do not want to disturb you because they witness a supreme kind of spiritual concentration that we bring to that theater, and they dare not disturb us. Because they're giving us a vote of confidence by buying the ticket in the first place. They said, okay, here's my 20 bucks, my 50 bucks, show me. I'm good. I might be a little cynical at first, but if you're doing your work, and you have prepared, you'll bring them around. You'll bring them around. Directors. You get a lot of people that say there's something. Sometimes they're not. More often than not, they are. But sometimes they're not. I've been accused on kind of dwelling on the negative at times, and my way of thinking about this work that we do is what needs attention is what needs attention. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if there's something going wrong over here, something's not working, we need to look at it and look at it clearly, plainly, in the face, name what it is, and understand what it is, and find a solution. Some directors are more capable than others. It wouldn't be the first, second, or third time that an actor has come to me and I don't even know what the play is that they're working on, because I know the actors, or we're friends, or we're associates, or they've worked with me in the advanced scene workshop, and there's trust there. And they say, I don't know what to do with this, and with this part, and in this moment. And I'm saying, what does your director say? Have you talked to the director? Have you asked the question about, hey, in the rehearsal, I can't find what I need to help me trigger what I need to play this scene. That's what directors are there for. You have to have that conversation with the director. Now, they're not omnipotent. They don't know all the answers. They're not infallible, but they can help you discover a way to possibly navigate that. Probably. Sometimes it's just a conversation that will stimulate, trigger some kind of inspiration that will help you. Keep that in mind. That's what they're there for, among other things, but that's what they're there for, to converse with the artist and figure things out. Ensemble, group. Yeah, keep that in mind. You don't want to waste anybody's time. Usually ask the question out loud to yourself. Probably 8 out of 10 times you can answer it yourself. Be specific. I always use this. I know some of you have heard this before. It was, Lena Horne. She had written her one-person show. And Lena used to come to the theater before every rehearsal, early, before the director would get there and find a corner or have a dressing room and read the play. She read the play that she wrote. You understand me? She read the play that she wrote before every rehearsal and before every performance. Not just her part. Well, in that case, it was her part because she was the only person there. But the point being, reading the play before every performance, before every rehearsal, because you find things, you rediscover, you reinterpret things, and they come to you during the rehearsal and will point you in hopefully a different, maybe a more progressive direction. She used to do that. Now that's probably, I think, read somewhere that Katharine Hepburn did that when she did Shakespeare. Was it The Taming of the Shrew? She did on Broadway back in, I don't know, 50s or 60s, 50s, I think. And you read the play every night. That means you got a 7:30 half hour. That means you get there at 5 o'clock. And you make your coffee and you eat your sandwich and you unlace your shoes and you start to put on your costume. And if there's makeup, you start to do that and you start to lose that world outside of the theater from your consciousness and bring forth the world of the play and immerse yourself in it. You're not going to be able to do that at 7:30 for an 8 o'clock curtain. Probably not. Maybe on a good day, maybe. Maybe you're an exceptional human being, maybe, but probably not. It's a big commitment and it's a lot of putting on shapes, consciousness, all of that to do this kind of work. But again, when it's working, there is nothing like it. Nothing like it. I always thought there were three kinds of performances. The one you rehearsed, right? That's the one that is at, let's say, this level. On a scale of 10, it's a good, solid 8 on a scale of 10. And that's giving your audience their money's worth. They paid their dollars, they get that performance, that solid performance that tells the story. Then there's this other one that, I'm just barely getting through this today. Something happened and my mind is a wreck. I'm saying the words, but oh boy, it's not easy. And you know what? Your ensemble that you're surrounded by, your colleagues that you're working with, know it. They see it. The audience, the audience might not see that. They might not sense that. They're seeing it for the first time. But your colleagues, they don't miss anything. Then there's the third one. And this is the one. Maybe out of a couple of dozen performances, maybe it happens 2, maybe it happens 3 times. And that is everything works. Everything works. And it's not even working. It's channeling. You're channeling the character. The other actors are channeling the character. The light board operator knows the show and is anticipating not the word cue for the light transition, but sensing what they need to do when they need to do it, even though they have Q Lab there and they're just pressing buttons. But they are so in tune to everything that is going on the stage because they too sense that the performing artists are just, something is happening. Something is happening that is completely unusual. These are not actors up there at this particular performance. These are spirits, and they're going through communion. And that's what's going on. And the audience senses it. Nobody sneezes at that very delicate moment. Nobody ruffles their program. Nobody's cell phone goes off. It all is correct, right, just, and they call that theater magic. When that happens, all those bruising weeks of rehearsal and doubting oneself and all of those kinds of tormenting things that can happen to an individual, boy, when that happens, when that kind of performance happens, theater magic happens, that's why you became an actor. To just experience those. And you're good. And you're good. And now I can go on because I know what that means. None of that happens unless you go through all of the things that we've been talking. That's not going to happen unless you go through all of it. And hopefully it happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But when it does, you know it. Believe me. You can testify to that. Questions? Comments?
Thank you, Ben. That was incredible. And I know everyone, I just sent out a chat or sent out in chat. If you have a question, just, okay, Terry, I see your hand is raised, but just let me know in chat. type in "I have a question" and you will be recognized. But since Terry, I see your hand, go ahead and come off mute and ask your question, please.
Okay. First, hi, everybody. Ben, I always am inspired and encouraged. I think about just an example, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We have this young comedic actor, and he lands this part. Now, this is a story about da-da-da, and he seems like he just plays himself. But maybe not. Maybe he's doing a caricature. So I guess my question is, you have these actors that they became very successful at just being themselves. And sometimes in the work, I struggle with, where does the development of the character begin and the Terry personality, the outgoing, gregarious performer, where does that end? Sometimes I struggle with, where does one end and one begin? And I'm using the example of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because Will Smith was very, very successful at doing that. And then, of course, we see where his career went after that, where he, especially when he did the one where he played the father and he was homeless with his son. I mean, I really saw a different character work as he developed in his career and in his work. And it just seems to amaze me how some people do very well at just being, seemingly just being who they are, versus going through the depth of the Stanislavski or the Stella Adler, where you develop this whole character that you become. So how do you know how to make that choice?
You use what you have. I think that is the first choice. We all have different elements. Making use of that is important. Using, Will Smith, he's a very talented guy. Obviously, his body of work speaks for itself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in the early days of, quote, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when he's 21 years old, or however old he was doing what he was doing. And he was became very, very good at that. You know? And not to mention the guy who played his brother or his cousin or whatever it was, who doesn't get the kind of kudos, but was doing an extraordinary kind of work, comedic work, physical comedy, comedic, farcical work. So using what you have and building on that, I think, is really the answer.
Okay.
You can start there. You can only start with what you have.
Yeah, because sometimes I just look at the depth and breadth of a life, my life in particular, I guess, and having such a varied array of experiences for real, that depending on what the character requires, I can just bring my stuff because I've already done that, or I've already actually lived that. So sometimes my choices become blurred when I am trying to decide am I living to live the character through my own experience, or to create this, I don't want to say facade, but this, to create this other life? It's like, why do that? You already got a life. Draw from that life.
Well, often the play, the story encompasses things that you haven't done. You haven't done. And again, imagination.
Right, but let's talk about the story and the life of the, so far, you know, when I've had the opportunity, there have been situations where the requirements of the character is a life that I have actually lived. And so, you know, I think, do I just do I do a deeper dive and pull from my own resources, my own actual experience, and relive that? Or do I try to separate myself and create this other character that then becomes almost sort of foreign and so yeah, this.
If it's similar to your own life, Terry, if it's similar to your own life, the play, if the play is, let's call it worthy, the play is your guide. You go through the experiences that are demanded by the play. And if they are parallel to your own life, you can use those, or
Okay.
you can change them.
Okay.
And experiment, discover, play with it, try different things during that rehearsal process. And it becomes a composite of you and your imagination.
Mm-hmm. 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 Do you think one is better than the other? And
No,
I mean,
I don't want to gauge it that way. You'll
okay.
know, and you
Okay.
have to, again, we're not in this alone. That's why I was emphasizing the director. Emphasizing the director, you know, the feedback from the director, and sometimes from your colleagues, if you have that kind of relationships, although I shy away from actors giving too many opinions to other actors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, it can be intrusive. But you ask your director, is it working?
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, you know, we're mature people. Most of us are mature people. At times we're childish, of course, and that's okay. And that's just being a human being. But you can see your work. There's a time, too, to sit and reflect on your work. You find a quiet place. At some point during your work, as it advances, and you start asking the questions, is this working? Have I gone to where I need to go to, or am I not? Am I skipping these moments because I don't know what to do?
Mm-hmm.
Or this is asking too much of me? Again, that's why at the beginning I was saying, when you commit, better understand what you're committing to. Better know what you're getting yourself into, because the script may ask of you things that you may or may not be ready or prepared or capable of executing.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Asking
Well,
those great questions, Terry. I'm sure it benefited everyone.
okay.
Adrian
Thank you.
Bosley,
Thank you, Ben.
please
Well,
unmute yourself at this time.
Actually, hi. Thank you so much, Ben. I can save my questions for the end.
who was that?
Adrian.
Q&A, Adrian.
Yeah.
Go ahead, ask your question, please.
Okay. I just want to know what creative offerings you all will be sharing in the near future at Robey.
Well, a week from Sunday, we have a reading of Melvin Ishmael Johnson's world premiere of a long one-act entitled revolutionary genocide. And Paul Robeson and William Patterson. William Patterson, everybody knows what Paul Robeson was, pretty much, especially here around the Robey Theatre Company. But William Patterson was an attorney, and who was UEP Newton's attorney, UEP Newton Panthers. He was UEP Newton's attorney, and he and Paul brought a document to the United Nations and to the United States government accusing and claiming that the government was committing premeditated genocide on Black people. Is that new? No. So they first did it in 51, and then they did it again in, well, they did it in 47, and then again in 51. They each, Paul did it in the United Nations, to the United Nations, and William Patterson did it at a peace conference in Paris. And the play is about that. And about these two men talking about that and devising strategy to combat what they saw as genocide to people of color. And it's very much like what's happening today, except it was it was lynchings and premeditated murder of Black people in this country. All of the lynchings before the Civil War, after the Civil War, through up to 1997, when that brother was picked up by those two Klansmen in a pickup truck, and they put a rope around his neck and dragged him behind the truck until he was decapitated. And what has transferred into George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and most recently Jacob Blake, and all of the other brothers and sisters that along the way have been executed, killed, assassinated through high-tech lynchings or incarceration. And I don't think I need to give you chapter and verse about the penal system and what the percentages are of us in the penal system as compared to, all the rest of it, and how that is ongoing, and becoming some kind of normalcy. So the play, Revolutionary Genocide, speaks to that accusation directly to speaking truth to power. We'll do that. We'll read that a week from Sunday on the 6th, 3 o'clock. The following week, on the 11th, James Cromwell will be the guests on an evening conversation. And Jimmy he's an old friend. He's participated in Robey fundraisers in the past, and he's always getting arrested. He's very much an activist, very much an activist about everything from animal rights to harboring the Black Panthers. Back in the 60s, he and his parents would harbor Panthers in their home when J. Edgar Hoover had and was doing all of that, right? So he'll come and he'll talk about some things on the 11th. That's a Friday night, 6 o'clock, an evening conversation with James Cromwell. Following that, we have another date in October, and we're just solidifying guests for that. Along the way, too, we'll read the third draft of what working title being A Difficult Conversation. That is a commission piece that Levy Lee Simon and I are writing He's writing more than I am. But about that, and some of you are part of that creative community that is taking part in hearing that play develop and being part of the creative process of that play. That once we go back into fully mounted live productions, which predictably can probably be next 2021 summer. Vaccine is the only thing that's going to allow for that to happen, but given the talk of scientists and the doctors looking at the end of the year to have something in place that is something like a vaccine, whatever that means, it's got to be developed, tested, blah, and all of that. So thinking that all of that will take place and be solid so that we can all go into the same room and sit with each other and sit with strangers and feel safe, to watch other people talk, give performances. Looks like mid next year, we'll produce a working title, A Difficult Discussion. There'll be a reading of Othello in November, of the play Othello in November. And yeah, so that takes care of this year. And given that we've got COVID and we've got an election coming up.
Yeah.
Vote.
Yeah.
Vote. Because no matter what happens in this election, there's going to be a chaotic aspect to it, because Trump looks like he's going to lose. I say it that way because how the hell did he get in there in the first place?
Yes.
Is my question. Okay, everybody knows what happened, right? But how does that work? So even though Biden and Harris are seemingly, things are going well, the Electoral College elects the president.
Yeah. We need
Not
to change.
popular vote.
We need to change that.
Yeah, people have been saying that for decades, and yeah, we do. But okay. So when that happens, when that election happens, that's going to cause a tidal wave of activity and transition and just damage control. So there's going to be a lot that's going on that is all important. So we have to factor those things in. And so leaving it through to December with the Robey's activities, and we'll see where we're landing come election and come 2021.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate your questions. We do have one other question in queue right now, and it's the last one if there are no others. Hanif Bhatti, would you come offline and ask, mute and ask your question, please?
Can you hear me?
How you doing? Yeah, I hear you.
Hi, Ben Guillory. I never met you. Just all of your work. You look much younger than I expected. I thought you were like 2000 or something. Hey, Ben.
Yes, you flatterer.
Yeah, I know. My question was, as a director working with writers who are just, actor writers, as compared to actor, director writers, and as compared to just writers, what have your experience has been? I mean, of course, it depends upon the individual person, what's bringing to the table, but do actors react differently as compared to writers, director, actors, or just actors performing their part?
You got to repeat that question. Say that again. Come on. You broke up in the middle of that.
There's some actors who are also writers and directors. So they may or may not have hopefully the audience working with just actors who are just actors as compared to actor, director, writers. What good things you have seen, and what, okay, that person is an a-hole you have seen in your experience?
Well, I've been around long enough to probably see a little bit of all of that.
I mean, excluding Mike working with me, so you know I'm the best. So sorry about that.
Right. Yeah, you know, writers, actors, director, all in one person, and they're doing all of that. They're acting in it, they're directing, and they've written the piece. There are some exceptional artists, talents, gifted, that are so gifted and so full of energy and so full of inspiration that they can do it. They can do it. And probably not all the time, probably not every time. It can become self-indulgent. A vision is a vision. You know, I have caught myself as a director, and I've done work as a director and actor, not as a director, writer, actor, but as a director, actor. But I got wise enough, smart enough to give myself plenty of prep time. I'm working on the play a year before we go into rehearsals. Dr. Du Bois and Miss Ovington was a case in point. I directed the play. I was in it as an actor. There's only 2 actors in it, 2-hander. And I still would like to have another shot at it because I never got that third performance that I described earlier. I got moments in performances that were like breathtaking. And Melanie, who was the other actor in it, she was saying afterwards, we really got something going in that one part of the play. And we're talking about an hour and 40 minutes worth of a play. And she was saying, and I felt it too, and it could tell by the audience when the audience reaction melded through from the fourth wall, that we had moments that were that communion and that was just simply very magical. But never had an entire performance like that, not from scene 1 through scene 13. Never had an entire performance like that. Again, had that conversation with myself 3 months after the performance of, boy, I just didn't understand or could not execute that moment to satisfaction. Had many of those kinds of conversations. Anyway, it's all to say, to answer your question, honey, you know, visions. An actor, director, writer has a very strong vision, and they don't want anybody mucking it up. That's usually the case. All right, ego gets in there, hubris rears its ugly head. Fine, sometimes that's the case. But I don't think anybody gets up in the morning and intentionally sets out to screw things up. Well, I guess there's some of those people around. But mostly
In the White House.
Yeah, mostly people want to build something that is wonderful. That's really is the purpose of theater, to build something that is beautiful and wonderful that is beyond, quote, reality, making reality better, more graceful, something just musical. And I don't mean a musical play, but I mean harmony of some sort. That's what theater can essentially be, even absurdist in what can be, the subject can be horrible, but the execution can be harmonious. So, yeah, good, the bad, and the ugly on that, to answer your question, brother.
So if you had a chance, or get a chance to just be an actor, what part, what would you like to do? I mean, you just talked about the play you did. Is that the one you would like to do if you just get a chance to just be an actor?
Well, yeah, one of them, because I'm a big admirer of Dr. Du Bois and Miss Ovington because of who Dr. Du Bois was, you know. I mean, anybody that is we all know who he was and what he contributed. I'm a big admirer of his. And so, yes, is the answer to your question. That's one of them. There's lots of them. Boy, there's lots of them. You were in part one of the trilogy. You saw what happened. You know, I mean, I'd like to get another shot at that. Fix that one, right? You know, most of the
No comments.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Questions, please.
Yes, we have two final questions for you, Ben. The
Yes,
next
ma'am.
question is coming from Thias Walsh, if I pronounced your name correctly.
That's okay, Thais. And my video won't come through, so I apologize for not being seen on camera.
Okay.
What I wanted to ask was about in the rehearsal process, and say it's a new piece, a new writer, and you, as an actress, have done your homework and studied your character, and you just feel that because you've dealt with the character that the character wouldn't say something or do something. How do you work that out? Because sometimes you just feel that this character wouldn't do that or say that. How would you, and you go to the director, you don't go to the writer, but you go to the director and say, I just don't feel that she would do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or say this at this point, especially not with classic pieces. You just have to work through that. But I'm just saying with new writers that are coming up and you are doing their piece, how do you?
What does the director say? You ask the director that question, I don't believe that this would work this way, and the director says what?
Work it out. Or try it. And I would be like, can I try it? You know, because we are in rehearsals. So I feel that I want to have the freedom to try things and see if it works or doesn't work. And if they're so stuck on how they see something or feel something, and you want to just like, can I try it another way? Or can I try it some kind of other way just to see?
Well, I think any director worth their salt is going to probably allow you to try things. Where you land and where the final decision is made is really up to the director and the writer. I'm assuming that the playwright is there, or they're in communication with the director in some way. And if they are not so rigid and you have tried their way in multiple fashion and slept on it and come back to it, and it still does not work for you, and you've conversed with the director once again saying, I've done everything I can and this is not working. And the director says, leave it alone for a while. Leave it alone for a couple of days. Hopefully you have a couple of days. Leave it alone, sit on it, sleep on it, leave it settle. Quit butting your head against a stone wall. And you do. And the writer will not budge. The director wants to honor the writer. You signed up for this play, not the one that you thought it should be. You have to go with the writer.
Yeah. And the second part of that is because as we're acting as an ensemble, so I'm feeding off of what the person in the other scene is giving me. I can't, if the person in the scene is giving me what I need to give it what it's supposed to give of what the writer has written, how do you handle that?
If that person is not giving you what you need.
Yeah, because we're supposed to be collaborating together.
Yes.
And I'm not a selfish actor. I'm an actor I'm reacting. I'm not acting, I'm reacting.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not getting what I need to react to, and no one's saying anything, because sometimes we, as actresses, we work with people that aren't as
talented as you are. Yeah, you can say that. That happens. That happens.
Thank you.
And vice versa. Listen, here's the answer to the question.
True.
It is one answer to the question, is if you're not getting what you need to get from a colleague, and if you feel that you cannot ask that colleague to try something that will help you, not indulge you, but help you, and you feel you cannot ask that colleague that, you talk to the director. And if it's so obvious that the line says, what are you so surprised at? And they're not giving you surprise, well, she's gonna notice, the director, I mean, that you're not getting what you need to say the line or to play the line.
okay.
That's what directors are there for. And they have to figure that out. And sometimes it just comes to pulling rank. I'm the director. I need you to do this. I don't need you to go through the Stanislavski method to get to this point. I just need you. The line says you're yelling. You got to yell.
Yes.
Thank you.
You got to make me a reason to be mad at you. You can't just, or storm off. If you.
Right.
Right.
Crystal.
Did we finish, Ms. Walsh?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Anthony Montgomery. And we're winding down, everybody. Thank you for staying with us.
How you doing, man? I just wanted to know if is the Robey Theatre Company offering like virtual scene study classes?
After the first of the year.
Say it again?
After the first of the year.
Okay.
We'll do something like that. I'm not sure what, because virtual scene study is very, I find it very difficult.
Okay.
Two people, monologue work, certain kinds of exercises, certain kind of acting work, yes, that can happen online like this during Zoom, and it can work very well, very, very well. Our Playwrights Lab works through Zoom. All the playwrights meet like this on a Saturday morning, and it works actually even better than meeting face-to-face, because people are in their pajamas with their coffee, and they can write in their pajamas with their coffee. But with actors playing a scene, the whole idea is contact. in every way, shape, and form. Interplay. The whole idea of a warm human being that has a certain scent next to you that
Daddy, did you just hear about Chadwick?
that it's a certain scent that influences how you behave.
Right.
All of that. So that's a very difficult one. There's certain levels of work that could be done, but
Okay.
I'm not particularly fond of that. And I hope sooner than later we can figure out a way to get back to a room, being on a stage with multiple actors playing to each other live and warm and can actually make physical contact.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mhm.
That was a great question, Anthony, because there was a question from Mel Hampton who came in after I closed the questions that had a question about auditions
Yeah.
for readings or Shakespeare or anything. Mel says, I would love to do Shakespeare again.
It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
hard to
I'm
hear.
sorry. I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
saying after I closed off questions, Anthony's question led directly into Mel Hampton, who wanted to know if we're
Hey,
going
Tiff.
to audition since he would love to do readings and Shakespeare.
There's Randall.
All right. So I
That's,
believe we are at the end of questions.
if there was a question asked, I didn't hear it at all.
No, it was a comment. It was more a comment. Are you going to have auditions? Can you hear me now?
No, we can't hear you.
Oh, let me see.
You sound muffled.
Am I even? Okay. Well, at this time, let's see. There's some information in chat.
Still can't hear you. It's like you're leaning away from the microphone or something.
Is that a little bit better?
That's a little bit better. You come out strong and then you fade out.
Okay. Speak in the computer time. Okay.
So use that basso profundo diaphragm stuff that they teach in Juilliard.
All right, everyone. As I was saying, we are preparing to close, but I thank Anthony for his question because Mel had a question after I closed off questions, which led perfectly with Anthony. He wants to know, are we going to be having auditions, and especially for Shakespeare because he loves Shakespeare?
Okay, I think you said Mel had a question, but no, there's Mel.
Yeah, Mel had a question and he wants to know if you're gonna do Shakespeare because he loves Shakespeare.
Why don't you ask the question? Get off mute and ask the
Mel
question.
asked the question.
Damn.
It's because he submitted it after the last question, which Anthony had. That's why.
The answer to the question is yes. Like I said earlier, we're going to do a reading of Othello, and it's just something I wanted to do a reading of it. We're not going to do the production of it.
Okay, well, the only reason I talked through the chat is because somebody said, talk through the chat. I'm merely an actor following directions. I've done
Well, we're just
Shakespeare plays,
bothering you,
Casey, and I would love to audition for Othello. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you're family. We can bug you, right?
I know, but I don't want to be a jerk. Especially the young actors, they need to see that we respect the rules of the theater. And I know how Ben respects, so I'm just out of respect, I was using the chat. I would love to participate, is all I'm asking.
Okay, when it gets to that point and seeing where we land, I'm not sure what we're going to do, how we're going to do all that, because we're next week is the first reading that we're doing, and I'll close out with this. We're really discovering how Zoom can make a reading interesting as opposed to simply talking heads. Because right now, I think they're getting better. I hear about wonderful readings. Somebody was saying something about the Ballad of Emmett Till earlier today that they
Yes.
heard that. Was that you, Al? So anyway, just starting to understand how to use the values and production values of Zoom to make what could be not very interesting hour and a half to 2 hours. For instance, Othello uncut is 5 acts. It's a long play.
And not everybody can handle iambic pentameter. So, you know, you got to have those 10 beats per sentence. So, and all I was just saying is I have that experience. So.
Yeah, so all of that needs to be, measured and worked so that, and so we're all finding our way through that. Thanks, everybody, for being. It's great to see everybody.